And I need some background on your family. Where are they from? And
Well, now, I'm from Roanoke.
Mhm.
That's where I was born and raised. And my mother was from Bedford County, and my daddy's was from Wythe County. That's where they were born.
And do you know what nationality they are or anything?
My daddy's German, and I think there's some Irish blood in my mother. Yeah. She always said she wouldn't ever have nothing to do with a German, but she married one.
Okay. And do you know how your parents met?
In National Business College.
Okay. And let's see. And what made you decide to leave your house? We'll start off with that.
I graduated from school,
Graduated from school.
and I had to get out and go to work.
What'd you do? What was your first job?
Taught dancing.
Taught dancing. Was that
Mhm.
your first job ever?
Yes.
Did you have it?
Mm-hmm.
And how'd you get your background for dancing?
Hmm.
How'd you get your background to teach dancing?
I took it when I was in high school,
And then right out of high school.
and
you
then
were
when I
able
got
to
out
teach?
of high school, I went to work for Gordon Powell.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. And do you have any brothers or sisters?
Got one brother, one sister,
And what are their names?
and Brown, Nathaniel Brown, Shelty Jr., and Florence Soberta Blunt.
Okay. And are they still alive or are they deceased?
They're
now?
both living.
And where are they living?
They're living in Roanoke.
In Roanoke? Do you see them much?
Well, used to see them more than I do now since I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
I see them every now and then. Talk to them on the phone about every week or two anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Not close enough anyways.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, what was the occupation of your parents?
Mama was a stenographer, and my daddy was a draftsman for Virginia Bridge and Iron Company.
Not really. What's a stenographer? Is that printing?
Secretary, like.
Secretary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you consider the area that you grew up an urban area or a rural area? Or
No, when they grew up, I guess it'd be urban.
Mhm.
But then,
You're younger. You
then
didn't necessarily live on a farm, but
no. Well, now mother and them I may have when they were young, real little too. Mother's mother died. I never did see any of my grandparents except one granddaddy, and so I really didn't know them that well.
Yeah. We're staying a lot. People are living longer and longer, so that
Mhm.
there's third generation families are
Don't know.
commonplace now. And
It's
yes, in your
true.
grandparents' time they were non-existent. Okay. How old were you when your parents died?
Now let me think a little bit. Daddy died when, hang on, what was, he died about 40 years ago. I hope it's, now, he died in 48. Now you figure it out. 58, 68.
40 years.
Yeah, I got it pretty good, didn't I? Pretty good guess, wasn't it? Mhm. And your mother died, I believe it was in 72.
16 years ago.
Mhm.
And did they die of natural causes or?
Daddy had a heart attack, and mother just had a lot of problems. I mean, a stroke.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
No, I don't mind.
Are you
If
gonna
I,
answer?
if I live to January the 12th, I'm going to be 70 years old. Mm. Mm.
Lucky. Many people get that far. Okay. How about the education of your parents? Were they educated?
Well, they both were graduated from National Business College.
And was that a 2-year college or a 4-year college?
I have a feeling in their days it wasn't but 2 years.
That's unique that they have any for that year, or that they have any college background.
Mm.
Okay. How about yourself?
I didn't have any college education. Graduated from high school. I got a couple classes in college when I started working for the school system. I mean,
Okay. And what about your husband?
He didn't have any college education. He was supervisor. Um, when I met him, he was working at a hosiery mill. And then when Full Fashion went out, he went to Marion, then he went to Chilhowie, and then he came back and worked for Wild Missing. He died when he was working for Wild Missing. He was a supervisor.
And how do you feel about education for
I think
people
it's
that-
important,
for both males and females?
both.
Okay. And how about, let's get to courtship. How about your courtship with your husband? How'd y'all meet?
Well, the first time I saw him at a cousin of mine. And next time I saw him, I didn't know he was the same person. So he didn't make a big impression on me. And so we dated about a year before I got married.
And how old were you when you got married?
21.
How old was your husband?
He would be 21. Let's see, yeah. He would be 21 in July.
So you were older than your husband?
6 months.
Okay. And how did he ask you to marry him?
We got married at the parsonage in Cripple Creek.
Mm-hmm.
That's in Wythe County.
Okay. And, okay, did you, let's see, you're 70, did you have much of an experience with the Depression? when that came?
No, I've heard my daddy talk a lot about it. It didn't affect me. He had a rough time paying the bills, but it didn't affect us kids. We didn't have nothing, no way. Too much. I mean, we had a happy life, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as money, it was hard on everybody at that time.
Okay, what about World War I? Any experience with that?
No. Mm-mm.
World War II?
Yeah, my husband was in World War II.
What did
He fought in Italy.
in Italy?
Hmm.
Okay. Was he Army? Or-
He was trained to be in the medical, he was trained to be a linesman, and when they shipped him overseas, he wasn't ever a linesman. They put him right in the medical corps. And so he didn't have any training then.
But he made him a doctor.
He carried out the wounded and all, but he got the Distinguished Award of Honor. And anyway, he did a good job, even though he wasn't trained for that.
Okay. Okay, your views on divorce. How do you feel about divorce?
I think you ought to really tough it out if you possibly can, especially if there's kids. But if you're going to just keep on fighting, my mama don't agree with me. She says she thinks you should stay together anyway. I don't. If they're going to live unhappy, and I'd rather take my kids and live by myself, I can make them happy.
Okay. What are your views on courtship now? Do you think it's changed much?
Gosh, yeah.
Was it-
The cars, they ride in cars. And anyway, they can walk where they let her in. Let's see. No, when I was courting, you had to walk on the feet. You couldn't get into the meanest y'all get into in these cars, running around.
You'd have to walk?
Yeah, we'd walk, and for entertainment, we'd have to walk. I rode a little bit, right, a little bit before I got married, but in high school, we didn't ever get no car to go running around in.
So what was a typical date like? Would he come over and y'all would go for a walk, or?
Oh, on Sunday, we'd walk up on Mill Mountain, have a weenie roast, and things like that. But we'd walk from house to house and have parties. They gave me a surprise birthday party one time in June, and my birthday was in January.
Good excuse for a party, though.
Yes, it was.
Okay. How is your life affected by the birth of your children? How many children do you have?
Got 3.
3. And
They're a blessing all the way. No, I mean, when my children were born, people didn't do all the things they do now. I mean, they didn't have a chance. None of the kids did at that time. But where nowadays They got everything money will buy. We didn't have it, but we had a heck of a lot of love.
And how are your children spaced?
Mine spaced, boy, they're spaced. It's 6 years between Ann and Naoma, and there's 9 years between Naoma and Sim.
I have a brother that's 18 years older than I am.
Do you?
My mom's not much younger, and she's only 4 years younger than you are.
Is she?
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. But did it affect your marriage with your husband when you all had children?
Mm-mm.
No?
I had a happy marriage. Farm out in the country did, but outside of that, his people wanting him out there, I can't complain about my marriage in any way.
Okay. And how do you keep yourself active nowadays? I remember you having that little dance.
I'm still teaching dancing 2 nights a week. Somebody has to hold my hand. But I still go. I didn't go, I guess this Monday night's the first time I've ever missed a dance class. But I go, and then Naoma teaches the advanced, and I teach the beginners.
So you still enjoy teaching?
Oh, I love it.
That's beautiful. What kind of dance do you teach most?
Ballroom, and teach waltz, foxtrot, rumba, tango, cha-cha, polka.
Clogging and two-step?
No, can't do the clogging. I try to do it myself a little bit, but I'm not good at that either.
How about music? Has music changed? What music did you grow up to?
Oh, it's changed right much. Oh, a whole lot as far as rock and all. You didn't know much about it
I'm sure.
during those days. But
ballroom music or big band?
Big band, and I was teaching dancing in Roanoke.
Who was your favorite big band leader or whatever? Or did you have
I
one?
don't know. We used to go to the Roanoke Auditorium. They had a big auditorium. They'd have the colored dances. And anyway, they'd have white spectators in the balcony. We'd attend all of them. We'd dance on the benches up in the balcony.
Okay. Let's see. How do you feel about growing old in the United States? Do you get a pension from Social Security or anything like that?
It sure ain't very big. Well, now, I can't complain about the Social Security as much as the Virginia State in retirement. Of course, I didn't work for 10 years for the school system, but really, I thought it was going to be bigger than that, the things they'd been handing out. But I just really didn't realize that if I didn't work till I was 70, it wasn't going to be that big. And then when it came, it was really cut way down.
Sure. Did your husband have a pension?
No, he didn't have anything. Every meal that went, they'd close. That was the time of full-fashion hosiery. And they take out this insurance, and then the mill would close, and you'd go to another and take out some more, and it would close. So at one time, he had about 3 times the insurance he had when he died.
What do you think are some of the major technological changes that have been through since when you were first?
Law, these are unbelievable. And all his things they're inventing and all these things they're doing is unbelievable to me.
Just like travel.
It is. It's really something.
Do you have one? Can you think of one technological advance that has affected the country or your life more than the other?
No,
One in particular?
I don't guess so. Well, even when I was growing up, there wasn't no TV, and TV is now. And I have never been in an airplane, so I don't know much about them.
Although you had the chance.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. And what do you do with your spare time mostly now?
Work on dance music and dance tapes and cook. I don't do much of nothing, but when I feel like it, I do. I like to cook, we'll say. I like to do things like
have
that.
Dee Dee over and teach her something.
Yeah. That's right. You're going to have to help her out on that.
She can't cook.
Yeah, I don't think she can either.
I gotta take over in the kitchen.
Yeah. He's telling the truth. He knows more about you than you think, D-Bud.
And did your children go to college?
Naoma and Ann is an RN, and Naoma has her master's degree in nursing, and my son, he graduated from Radford.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So you were able to put everybody through college.
It.
That's quite a feat to be proud of.
Well, we're real proud to see him because his daddy was passed away when he was in high school. And between him and me and his sisters, we all put him through college. It was everybody wanted him to make it. And he worked hard.
How do you feel about going old in general?
If I was well, I wouldn't care. I don't think I'd get old.
Has it affected your life?
But having this cancer all these years, it's really been a fight.
Yeah, sure.
So old age ain't much fun. I didn't think I'd ever get old till I got this.
Were you looking forward to retiring and everything?
No, if I was able, I wouldn't retire now.
Well, you're still teaching your classes, so.
Yeah, but I was working over at the schoolhouse before. I was a chapter 1 aide in math and reading. And I would have kept that job if it hadn't been for the cancer.
How old were you when you stopped working there?
I think 88. I guess I stopped in 84 maybe over there.
That's not that long. Okay. Wish I was better prepared for you, but I just got these
That's
questions
fine. I
for
don't see nothing
today.
wrong with it.
Is there anything that you'd like to just tell me about going old that I should know, or
Go to church.
go to church?
Go to church every Sunday. I tell my dancing pupils that dancing is a highlight, but you don't put it in front of going to church and your family. Those two things come first in your life. After that, have a good time. If it's clean time.
So faith is very important to you.
Yes.
And
I told him to go to church every Sunday. Don't you think that's a good idea?
Sure.
I did. Huh? Okay, thank you.
You don't want to stay?
No, I don't need you tonight, honey.
Sure.
Yeah, if I decide I'll change my mind, I'll call you. Okay.
I'm going to get some supper.
Okay, you ain't had supper yet. Bye-bye.
Nice seeing you.
So long. Now, you want to ask me any more?
I think about truth right now, but if I'm getting to write the paper and I need a question, you mind if I call you?
I'll be glad for you too.
Okay, great. That's all for you.
Okay. Somebody I saw do one of those. I don't know, but anyway, if you want to know about my courtship, I'll tell you
Yeah, I
about
wanna
that.
hear
It was
more.
good.
How many
Well,
boyfriends did you have before you?
A whole lot. The one I was the most serious about, so before I met Chess, was one of the first people that ever drowned in Clayton Lake. He was the best swimmer you ever saw. And the boat, something happened, and he went for help. He must have took cramps, and he drowned going for help. But after I finished high school, Mother and Daddy had a cabin. Well, this was as I was growing up. We took and rented our house out because we didn't have enough money to rent or own a cabin. So we rented a house out in town, and then we rented a cabin out at Tinkerbell. Well, that was a public swimming pool, and it had a big dam up there. And, of course, it wasn't like Dee Bug in them's cabin. It was a cabin. It had holes in the floor, and when you want to wash your floor, you put the water on there and sweep it down through the cracks. and, but anyway, at that time they had the CCC camps, and I was dating this guy that lived at Hollins, and he had a canoe. So he would come over on Tinker Creek and go boat riding. So I dated him. So while he'd be gone all week and come home on the weekends, and he lent me his canoe. He didn't rent it to me. He just let me use it. Well, while he was gone all week, I took the rest of the boys canoeing. And anyway, he found out about it. And when he found out about it, he took the canoe away from me. And when we had that cabin, the 2 cabins down was the Presbyterian Church youth group. And it was a bunch of boys that stayed out there all the time. And anyway, we had quite a good time down there. And anyway, for spending money, the bathhouses had those cracks between the floors too. And me and Brown Jr., we would go down in the morning like Sunday was a big day, and we'd get down underneath there, and everything they had dropped down between the cracks, they couldn't get out, and we'd gather up. So, let's see, at that time I dated 2 brothers, and anyway, I got a picture in there of the one I liked the best. And that day I took off with somebody else and left him. So they took his picture, and he's holding his sack. And I'll show you the picture when you want to see it, Dee Bug. So when I was dating Chess, he was a little bit quieter than I was, but you had to know him like I knew him anyway. And one night we was double dating with Mary Hurst and Claude. And anyway, we rode out towards Stony Fork, and Chess went over this bank and right down out in the middle of the creek. And he just parked the car. And anyway, we didn't know what was coming off, but when we came out, we saw Noah and Arcade down here. You know Noah. They were on the other side of the creek, parked. So a lot of things like that happened in my days. But, yeah, you done worse things. You bound to done worse things, Dee Bug. I just can't believe you as good as I was.
I hear these stories. 2 brothers at one time. How do you react to that?
So, Nelson, I met him, the one that got drowned, at, I was teaching in run-up dancing. That's how I met him. And then when I came up here, I came visiting a cousin. And like I told you, I didn't know him. I saw Chess the first day. The next day, I didn't know it was even him. So he didn't make that big an impression. But at that time, I was dating Raymond Sutherland, lives there here. We called him Tight Sutherland. And anyway, they had the ridge up here, and there wasn't no houses on the ridge. And they had 2 shifts, and my husband, he got me a job. I never did go ask for a job. He got me a job. He said he'd get me one if I stay up here, and I stayed. So he worked one shift, and Tight worked the other shift. So I would go up on, I'd go out with Tight, and we had to go in at 3 o'clock. I'd come to town early, and we'd run around till 3 o'clock. Then I'd do Chess, and Chess take me home, date him that night. So when Chess got me the job, Tight says, well, there goes my girlfriend, because Chess had me put on his shift, and I couldn't date Tight no more. Knowing the other things I've told you mean I done.
Yeah, this is what Sam told me. You didn't tell me these
Didn't you?
things.
Well, I'll sit down and show you my album in there and the pictures. And it's really pathetic how many of them that have gotten killed or died that I knew when I was real young, that died before I did. because now Oscar, the one that I left holding the bag, he died of a heart attack before I married Chess.
He wasn't the Oscar that was beside our cabin.
No, this is Oscar Young. He had a brother named Maynard and one named J.W. And I dated Oscar and I dated J.W.
Is there anybody in this house?
Yeah. And then Preach that was out there, we called him Preach all the time. I forgot what Preach's last name was. Everybody just called him Preach. He got killed on a motorcycle right after we quit getting the cabin out there. And when I came to Whitfield after I met Chess, that ended all the rest of my flirting days. I had to start being pretty good. But I wasn't bad. It was just, I didn't want it to be dull.
Had you been engaged before?
No. Well, it wasn't, I guess, a formal engagement. But Nelson and I at one time really thought about it a little bit. But anyway, that didn't work out. So then I came along and I met Chess. And after that, I really wasn't interested in nobody else. I even gave up dancing and all this stuff for a long time. And I didn't teach dancing no more until Ann was in the 6th grade.
Did you work at all?
Yeah, when he was in service, I worked at Pew's in Roanoke. I worked at McClellan's. I worked at a hosiery mill. And this was funny. At that time, they couldn't get help, you know. And you could get by with anything. So, anyway, the hosiery, if you're a topper, you take your finger and you run silk hose. Each one of those holes in that stocking had to go on a needle on the right line. If you didn't, it made a run. And so sometimes the legger would make a mistake and put too many holes or something like that in. Of course, that would be a bad dozen of hose. So this girl from Hillsville and myself, Chess was in Italy, we went to Lakeside, and we was on a night shift. Well, we had run around and played, and we came, and anyway, she got this bad dozen of hose, and she'd go along there, and she didn't know, was she sleepy or the hose was bad. She got way behind, so we had to get up and drop the bars in a machine after you'd topped how many bars you run. I think I always got to about 10. And anyway, when she'd get up to the machine, she took the old pair, the dozen of hose that was bad, and put them on the side so she wouldn't use them again. I'd slip some of them over, put them on a good dozen of hose. She'd start topping again, and that wouldn't go on there. And she'd say, Mary, I can't be this sleepy. And I did that 3 or 4 times. And then I got tickled. I laughed and I laughed. And I cried and she cried. She didn't even know what she was laughing, crying for. And anyway, the supervisor came around there and wanted to know what was going on. And neither one of us could say a word. We were just laughing and crying. But I had a good time that night getting her upset. But you could buy with it then, because they couldn't get nobody to top. Everybody's gone to war. They needed us bad, so we could do what we wanted to do. All right, now what else you want me to tell them?
Anything else you would tell?
I don't know. I laughed and told, was it
Hear more
Kelly?
about Dee Dee's mom. What'd she ever do that was bad?
Lord, she's a mess. She was a mess, too. I can see Phil Seneca coming around that corner down there on 2 wheels. I believe she had a date with that night. Anyway, it was on the porch, and he was mad because she was dating this one. I can still see him turn that corner on 2 wheels. They were furious. He was one of my favorite boyfriends, too, though. He was really cute. She had some cute boyfriends. She had some sweet boyfriends. She dated Bruce Dillon. He was just as sweet as they'd get. Phil Seneca, he was Bucky sweet, but right now, I'm going to shoot him. I have to shoot. But I love him to death. I don't care what y'all say. I do love him, and he's never said a crossword to me in his life. He never has. Everything he's ever done, from I've never asked him to do anything that he wouldn't do it for me. He's a good person. He is. He's a good person. But I wish whoever made alcohol, they'd kill him now. It's just really sad because, I mean, he's just a good person. He's a wonderful person. He really is. And it is a sickness. And people got to learn it's a sickness, but it sure makes it rough on him. It makes it rough on him. He is so sweet. I'll never forget him when I first found out I had cancer. When he came to Roanoke, that was the sweetest guy I ever saw in my life. He just hugged me, and he was the sweetest thing. I won't never forget him. But he's always been just tops to me. I really love the guy. But I want these girls and boys like Dee Dee and Todd, you don't taste the stuff. Not even a little taste. No, because he thought, oh, a little taste never get me. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They just don't realize it. They'll make a law against it. They tried, yeah. My mama, this is, I had an aunt, my mother, and ain't poaching him all day, but that's when they had, what was the name of the organization that fought prohibition and all? WCTU, I think, or something like that. Anyway, they signed things they wouldn't drink any alcohol or anything. And Uncle Hugh, he did right much just drinking beer and wine and stuff. So I know we went down there one year at Christmas, and we spiked the eggnog so they'd break their promise. And Dee Dee's granddaddy was over here one time, and I had who did I have in here with me at Christmas time? Anyway, I served eggnog that had some alcohol of some kind in it, rum or something. Yeah, and but I've learned a lot since then. But I know Bus said, Mary, I never thought that you'd ever got by with that, but I got by with it that time.
I remember that. They served it to everybody. They wouldn't give it to me. I didn't know why at the time
Either.
either.
Well, I like eggnog, and I like really the taste of wine as far as liking it. I never was that much of a fanatic. I've grown to be more and more now than I was then. But now, as far as my home, I never saw a bottle of whiskey in my life. I never saw a can of beer. Daddy made wine to put on the fruitcakes. But now that was as far as I had ever even seen until I got married. Now, Chess would drink beer, but it'd stay in the refrigerator 5 or 6 weeks, and he'd never touch it, but he was there if he wanted it. And I know he was on the church council, and Pastor Price one night asked him, he said, if I came to your house, would you offer me beer? Chess says, you come and I'll show you. So anyway, Chess had cancer at that time. And when he came home, he said, Mary, I want you to go get some beer. He says, when Pastor Price comes, I'm going to give him some beer. Well, the next time Pastor Price came, we tried to get Pastor Price to drink some beer. He said, no, he had a church meeting. He couldn't do that night. And somebody said that him and Dr. Barton, I guess maybe Pastor Price even told that, I don't know, was the only two in their class in Roanoke College that they thought went through the college and did ever take a taste of any kind of alcoholic beverage. And then when Chess had cancer, he had a trach, and we had to just feed him liquids all the time. And so he got so tired of just eggs and milk and stuff. So one day he said to Dr. Barton, he said, can I put something in there to make that better? And he said, well, you know, I wanted to suggest it, but I was afraid to. I didn't know how you'd take it. But then from then on, we've started making some real eggnog. Now, you know any more questions you want to ask me?
Let me think. I was thinking of something.
I think up things every now and then tell the crazy kids as we go along. But it's just something I see, it hits me, and then it'll remind me of something I did when I was a kid. But all in all, that's about all I know. I wasn't an angel, but I still say if they end up as good as I am, they're all right. And I love my grandchildren. I told Pastor Clutch yesterday that I might not ever have had money, but I had more to be thankful for than anybody I know of, because my kids have really took care of me, and they took care of their daddy. And you can't add money, don't buy that. You really don't. You got to have love there. So I really think I'm a lucky person. I just gripe when I don't feel good. And I griped yesterday. But I really have got a lot to be thankful. We built this house. It took us 2 years, but we just almost built it. We had other people come in and help, but I mean, Chish really did an awful lot of the work. But it cost, I would just, as a guess now, I don't know, seemed like somewhere along the road I heard him say we had invested about $12,000. And see, that was in 42. No, 48. Take that back. Naoma, when we moved in, my daddy died the week we were supposed to move in. And I went to Roanoke. And at that time, none of these houses was up here except this one next door is the only house up here. And I was scared to death. I moved from the mill houses out here. It was so big. I hated this house. I'd go back to my little house any day. But I got over it. I got used to it. It was just having a new baby and Daddy passing away, and things like that do tear you up. But you keep pushing. Usually we come out on top some ways. Try hard enough too, don't we, sis? Yeah, boy. So, I don't know. But Ann, I think her biggest highlight, her biggest highlight in her growing up was her band. She went to Kansas, and she went to Washington, D.C., and she went to New York City, and they were at Eisenhower's inauguration. Now, we had Jack White as band leader, and we had quite a band.
That's how she met.
Well, now, Bucky was in the band, and Bob well, all the ones she run around with. I think she had her first date when she was in about the 6th grade. I believe that's when it was. And she went to the movie with Eddie Woolcott. He died not long ago, too. But I can see him walking down those steps and walking to the movie. Now, this is the difference in y'all's age and theirs. They would go to the movie on Saturday, these kids would, and they'd sit 2 times, 3 if they wanted to. You didn't ever worry about them. They walked down there and they walked back. But then when integration came in, you were scared for them to do it anymore. You just couldn't do things like that no more. That's where y'all lost out, because they could do anything and go anywhere, and you didn't sit at home and worry about them, and they didn't have to worry. And I think parents put a lot of fear in their eyes a lot of times. But I know one time CM went to they was down here playing basketball, him and Kenny Sorensen. And anyway, these big colored boys came, took the ball away from them. Of course, they had to go sit down and let them play with their ball. So a bunch of them. So finally they told them they had to come home, so they got their ball. And then they walked on across like they was coming home, and when the colored guys left, they went back on the field, and the coloreds came and chased him all the way home. So that's what it was like at that time. So see, they didn't have a chance like I did. or Ann did, or even, and Naomi changed from Ann and Naoma because when Ann went, they went to the high school dances. Those girls didn't ever think about taking a date. They had a good time. And then when Naoma came along, I think there was even a rule integration had set in. You had, or maybe it had in the first few dances, but if you didn't have a partner, you changed so much, you was better off at home if you didn't take a date with you. And then I think later, didn't they really set a rule you had to have a date? Seemed like
Some
they
of them
did.
but not all
Oh.
of them. Well, I wasn't
But Ann and them, Law, they never wanted a date at a dance.
Is it just because they were safer with the date?
Yeah, and then that was to keep a lot of stags coming in, boys and all, I guess. But I mean, at that time, and then it got by the time Naoma come that the boy is supposed to ask the girl all the time. And then went up and asked to dance with anybody they wanted to. They just did what they wanted to. And they had a better high school life than Naoma did. Then when CM came along, it was, well, he didn't go to too much because his daddy was, he had passed away and he was working in the store at nights and he didn't even get to half of the ball games. And
Well, he started dating Mary early.
yeah, but she's 3 years younger, isn't she, than he is.
Yeah.
And,
When did
and I couldn't make him date other people. I did everything in my power.
Yeah, they've been together the whole time.
No, sir, that's the truth. I would beg him. Her mother was so tight on her and wouldn't let her, in his junior senior prom, it was his junior year, she would not let him go to that prom with him. And I even told CM I would get him a date. And you know, I couldn't get that boy to go. And they've been together ever since. I hope they stay this way the rest of their life. They seem to be real happy.
I thought that's where Todd was going to be for a while. But I figured he went there for it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to end up like that too.
I was like, oh no, he's going to get married before me.
Well, that's hard. That ain't no big deal.
No, it's
I'll
not.
tell you, like Aunt Betty, I was at her house, and anyway, they were talking about people getting married, and I said, Aunt Betty, I said, I was 21, but if I had to do over, I'd be 25. And she says, Mary, you don't mean a thing like that. I says, Aunt Betty, I'd marry the same guy, but I'd be jumped if I wouldn't wait till I was 25. And I really would. You live so much longer now that you don't need to. Where you used to get married in high school, my gosh, you got to live with somebody an awful long time if you live to be 80 years old. That's too long to put up with anybody.
We got another 10 years.
I ain't saying that, Scott.
Don't worry.
You ain't no rush. No, get yourself a job. Make her get one too.
A good one.
A good one that helps out a whole lot.
You're a cook
No,
for him.
but I'm all for married life. Don't get me wrong.
How long,
No.
How long did you all wait before you had kids? After you got married?
1 year. Really, it's about 11 months.
Jump right to it.
But I was really happy and proud of it. It really was.
Do you like the size of your family, or do you wish you had more children?
No, I've got a nice sized family. I did have several miscarriages. That's the reason they got so far apart. Between that and the Army, it made a difference in my life. And Chess did want that boy, and it took us a long time to get that boy.
I work with all
But the funny part, I wanted my first two to be girls. I never did tell him I said I wanted a girl when Ann was born, but I never did tell him that I wanted a girl when Naoma was born. And he was with me in the room when she was born. And I says, Chess, what is it? He says, that little old girl that you really wanted. And I never had told him I wanted a girl, but I did want another girl. But then I wanted a boy.
If I would So
So,
you'd have kept on going if you hadn't had one.
yeah, that's what I was beginning to think was going to happen. I really did, but no, I've got a nice family. I've had a nice life. I have no complaints. I fuss on the country, don't I? I fuss on the country, taking Chess in the country so much. Now, that did take their daddy away from them a lot, but they were raised that way, and they didn't know the difference either, I don't guess. I still fuss at them every day. But I didn't hate them. I think I do sometimes, but I didn't. I really liked Chess's mother and daddy up to a big point. I really did. Especially the daddy. He had the sweetest daddy. Temper. He had an awful temper. But now he's another one, never said a cross word to me in his life. Anything I did was all right with him. And I believe I'm about the only one in the family he didn't. Because I've heard Genevieve and him say that, him saying things to them, but he never did to me.
When did I ever know him?
Mm-hmm. You got a picture of you in there and you was a little baby. Made the 4 generations, but none of y'all knew y'all's grandparents because you wasn't around them. I mean, when you'd go out there on Sunday, they had to work all day. They had a farm. They had 2 farms. And they didn't know what it was to sit down and talk. Even for Sunday afternoon, they didn't do that. And that's an entirely different, but I don't approve of that kind of life. I don't care how much money you're making. I think family ought to come before money. I really do, because you can be happy on a little bit of money, even though you think you can't. You want everything. I found that out. You can have your thing back. No, I don't know. Is it?
Run out yet. Yeah, it's still
But most of the kids nowadays, they don't get married that early. Mm-mm. It really has slowed down a whole lot. And it is true. They don't get married to stay married. And anymore, oh well, I can get a divorce and get me another one. Mm-mm. But that, they're never happy. I still say they're not. You ought to wait till you really think that's who you want to live the rest of your life with and put up with their good and bad.
Sounds like you did your share of searching for the right man.
Yeah, I did. But I do, and you'll have your ups and downs. Everybody does. But you'll still be happy. Life will be worth living. Or mine, just looking at my kids now makes it worth what push I do to keep going. And I love them. Anyway, they say I'm partial to different ones, but Scott, I'm not. Not much, anyway. Everyone's just got a different personality, and you love them in a different way. But I really love every one of them. And the ones that are around you all the time and every day, it might seem that way, but it's not. You still have the same love for all of them, or I do. Same with my kids. I can't say that to even see him being that long. He was as much Ann's boy as he was mine. When he was born, she was in band. And Chess called out to high school to let her know, because I was in labor a couple of days before he was born. And she had broke out all over. And she says, Daddy, I don't guess I better come to see Mama. She says, I broke out with the measles. And he came back there and he said, Mary said, Ann says she's got the measles. She better not come back. I says, Chess, she ain't got a thing in the world but a big set of nerves. I said, tell her to come up here and go in Dr. Ed's office before she comes back here and see what he says. And she did, and he told her it was just nerves. And she had broke out all over waiting to see him to be born. So he was really loved. That's the reason he's a stinker. But he is loved, and he has been a good son. All my kids been good. All of us do. Everybody does things. Ain't just perfect. You don't want to be perfect. Just be good. Or most of the time be good. But can't nobody say I love one of them anymore, and I love all of them. And I'm really proud of them. And Dee Dee ought to be awful proud of hers, too. And her mother especially. She's been through a lot in her life to make her a happy girl. She has. It's 1 in 1,000 that would just keep a plugging and keep a going like she has to keep her family together and to educate them and keep them happy. Now, that's true. She deserves more credit, and she's pretty. I don't know, but she came over here last night. Was that when she went to the country club? Yeah, to the golf banquet. She looked so pretty, and I knew she was so upset. Yeah, that was when Bucky, he wouldn't be real. His nose was, no, his lip was bleeding. She tell you about it? You haven't talked to her?
Just a little.
No, it was kind of hemorrhaging on it, and she couldn't get him to let her go to the doctor, take him to the emergency room or nothing. And she really came over here, and she didn't know really what to do. So Naomi said she'd go over and see what she could do with Bucky to go on, and we'd check on Bucky. So she went on, and she did. She had on her purple suit. She looked so pretty. And Naomi went over and finally got it stopped. And Naomi kept begging him to take him to the emergency room, and he wouldn't let her. And it just, I guess a blood vessel or something broke Dee Dee. And he just didn't want to go up there. And he don't like doctors and hospitals and things like that. Don't none of us. I was ready to shoot him over in Durham this time. We waited 5 hours down there the day I went in the hospital before we even saw the doctor and got in the room.
5 hours?
5 hours. They were that busy in the cancer center. But by the time I got there, I was a wreck. Now, that's the truth.